Well, joining us to unpack these issues is Gundo Maswime, a civil engineering lecturer at the University of Cape Town. Gundo, very good afternoon to you. Coming to us, of course, under these tragic circumstances. So many questions have been raised about just the prevalence of buildings and houses with poor structural integrity being erected across the country, I must say. In this incident and in your expert opinion, walk us through what likely happened here and what the most likely structural failures were that caused this double-story building to collapse so suddenly.
Thank you, and let me start by sending my condolences to our family. When there's no rain and there's no wind and there was no force against the structure in the early hours of the morning, the most likely cause of the failure of the structure is what we call creep loading. It means a structure that is poorly designed or poorly built can still carry the load, but then with time, then the failure just happens with time. So after a long time, it will give in, though it was carrying the load for a while.
And I mean, we've discussed this many times with other experts. You'll find that many homes are built or extended informally in this way, primarily to cut costs. What does South African law require before constructing or even extending a double-story building?
Yes, on all double-story buildings, before they are constructed or even extended, submission must be made to the Municipal Council of the drawings showing the additions to the structure that are going to be done. But over and above that, the contractor that must work on the building must be accredited and in good standing with the NHBRC. Then over and above that, there has to be a sign-off from a registered civil engineer. So in many instances, there are people who, we just call them people that draw building plans. You will find that from that person, it goes to the builder and it's built. It has not gone through the municipality or anywhere else. Yeah, so that becomes a problem.
Yeah, and which brings us exactly to that, Gundo, in terms of just how effective are these municipal plan approvals and even the inspection processes, particularly in high-density areas or even informal areas?
Yes, now the whole model also raises a new question. It's just we have not had a collapse that's directly related to that. Maybe the George building, because the plans were submitted to the municipality. That much we knew. However, the person who's inspecting the plans in the municipality, in the case of South Africa, where out of the 257 municipalities, we've got at least 120 that do not have any engineer. And the plans are not necessarily submitted to the engineering department. They are submitted to building control, which is part of town planning in many municipalities. And what they are really looking at is, does your building encroach into the 2 meters or so from the perimeter of the fence, which is where the municipal services should run? It's not so much somebody who's going to be analyzing the structural integrity of the building. The assumption is that the engineer who has signed off on the building is the one who knows the interaction between the structural members. So it means in our case, where sometimes our buildings are done by technologists, by technicians, and even by artisans sometimes. So there's also the question of who actually signed off as the engineer when you submitted. So there are still layers we need to peel off, and we shouldn't wait for the disasters to start peeling off those layers.
Absolutely, and I think it does speak a lot to accountability, Gundo. So we know that the Public Works and Infrastructure Minister, Dean McPherson, has now called for this immediate investigation into the collapse. What investigations typically follow after, such a tragic incident? What evidence would engineers then look for in the rubble? I know you've given us your expert opinion in terms of what could have possibly caused this collapse.
Yes, interestingly, what the engineers look for is exactly what we want to study afterwards. We want to look at that report. But most of the time, the report that goes to the public is the one of compliance. Was this submitted? Was this done? But the engineers want to know what made the building to come down at technical level. Which structural member? Was it a design problem? Was it the contractor using inferior materials? Or was it not built properly? What exactly was it? So what the engineers would do, in this case, it should be a slab that collapsed. Just looking at the number of fatalities, it should have been a slab. So they will go and they will take cores from the concrete and take it to the laboratory and then compress it and try to see if it had the right, the concrete mix was correct in the MPAs, the megapascals of the concrete itself. So they will be looking at.
All right, Gundo, I think we've lost you there, but thank you so much. I think we got the gist of your analysis. I really appreciate that. Gundo Maswime, a civil engineering lecturer at the University of Cape Town.